So I joined 212 about 18 months ago, and that was 10 years after almost 10 years after working with Weber Shandwick in public relations, communications, strategic communications, and crisis communications. And before that, I was a reporter for 20 years. And reporting like set the stage for everything for me. It was writing on deadline, it was being curious, going after stuff. Every day was like this adrenaline rush. So after 20 years of that business and kind of being called in saying to the editor's office saying, we need you to bang out a 40-inch profile on somebody. It's Wednesday and you got to have it done by Sunday. I was done. I was burned out. But everything I learned in that business, kind of truth, honor, integrity, giving fair coverage, and hunting for great stories, I've carried that to Weber Shandwick. And that was kind of a weird transition because I didn't necessarily want to do public relations. I was thinking that at that time, maybe I wanted to see if I could be a stock analyst. And there were some opportunities there, but that may have required a move and a bigger risk to move to New York and a much bigger risk. But I liked the numbers, I liked investigating companies. So I brought that curiosity and energy to public relations at Weber Shandwick. And what I found was fascinating because it was like, here's how you see how the sausage is made. You're working with companies and you're working with CEOs, and it's like, this is going on, they're dealing with problems, and you're seeing how they handle big issues. How do they handle a bankruptcy? How do they handle like polluting a park? And how do they communicate those heavy issues with the community at large? So I had a great career at Weber, and it was a big company, but the business was kind of getting squeezed a bit, and I was offered a chance to take a buyout. And with that, I brought 2 clients with me. But before that happened, Erica and I had been talking. Erica McClinsky and I had worked together for probably 7 or 8 years. And we had a strong bond. If there's someone who keeps the trains moving on time, she does it. Everything is organized, extraordinarily efficient, and she's got a great strategic mind as well. So we worked together on some big accounts, Fortune 100, Fortune 60 companies, and Bank of America, General Motors. We did some work with Honeywell, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying that, but whatever. We worked with Honeywell as well, and so we knew each other very well. And she kept pestering me. I had 2 kids in college at the time. I've got 3 kids, but 2 were in college. She kept pestering me, saying, "You've got to leave. You've got to come and work with me. I've got more business than I can handle." And so one day I decided to do that, and I negotiated where I could take 2 clients with me, and I made the jump, and it was terrifying. I got to tell you, I mean, it was just, there was no more tether, there was no more life raft. You're just kind of out there. And so I had clients, she had clients, we merged the business, and then I went it was like rabid. We just went out there crazy for 12 months, meeting with everybody we could meet with. And the adrenaline was up for 12 months, and it just didn't stop until a few months ago when it was like, wow, I'm exhausted. But that's how we did it. And my family was looking at me like we didn't skip a beat. My wife was a little worried at first, but then, things started to smooth out pretty fast, and it was like successful fairly quickly. The most significant moment in my life was, this sounds corny, but it was meeting my wife. My wife and I met in a newsroom at Business First in Columbus, Ohio, and we dated a total of a month and a half. And then I moved to the San Jose Business Journal. I drove out there, my belongings, maybe a suitcase and a duffel bag, something like that, and drove out. And by the time I got to Winnemucca, Nevada, that's when I had a lot of thinking to do, because I met her and we had this intense, brief relationship. I had met her parents, I'd met her friends, we worked together, and then I was out on this vision quest to California, to the San Jose Business Journal. And in Winnemucca, one evening I just called her and said, do you want to get married? And of course she said yes. So it was very strange. I was not looking to get married. I thought I would be a single person for a long time, but I had to make the decision. And so it was a gut thing, and we've been married for 30 years. And she moved, eventually we got married, and 6 months later we were married, and this was in February. We got married in August, and then she moved to California, and we lived there for a little bit. You know, you take a risk in everything you do, and I'd never seen, it was in the winter when we met, so I'd never seen my wife in like summer clothing, and it was kind of strange. But she was just like me. We were both hard workers, and we came from a background. Her father was a World War II vet, so we were brought up with this kind of hard work ethic. And she was in politics and eventually worked for the Clinton White House. She was Bruce Babbitt's, the Secretary of the Interior, Bruce Babbitt. She was his personal assistant. She had a great job. We eventually moved back to Washington. She had a great job there. And I told her, I said, hey, I have an offer to move to Baltimore, to the Baltimore Sun. And I initially turned it down, saying, oh, I'm making all these excuses. And then I said, no, I got to go after this. And that required her to quit her job. And at that time, homicide on the Life on the Streets was on. And so that was her window into Baltimore. She had been there, but you know, it was a pretty gritty transition. But she toughed it out. She sucked it up and moved with me. So she has been a great foundation. She keeps me, if I'm kind of going off into left field, she reels me back in. So I don't have a bucket list. I'll look at something, maybe 2-year horizon, and then go for it. So one thing is, I definitely would like to go to Italy. That's where my wife is, her people are from, and her grandparents, and they're from the northern part of Italy. And she had been there as a kid, and I'd like to take her back there and tour Italy. I think it'd be amazing. So that's one thing. And secondly, I like to do things that kind of test me physically and mentally. So one thing I want to do is a ride called the Dirty Kanza. It's a 200-mile gravel ride that starts in Emporia, Kansas, goes out 200 miles on gravel, and then, 100 miles out on gravel, and then 100 miles back. Now the furthest I've gone is probably 110 miles, and that's on a road bike. So this would be a different challenge. It would be, mental and physical thing. Hydration is key. You got to watch out for that. When you push yourself to those kind of limits, you figure out where like demons live, and it's amazing. You kind of get to this like, wow, I can really do this. My body can handle this kind of stress. So I like to do. That's one thing I'm looking at. So the shift is, we have this business and it's up and running, and we work in 3 main areas. One is public relations. That's kind of simple, right? You want to be popular, you want to have a great reputation, work with us, and we will come up with a strategy to get you on television, in the newspapers, radio, and make you a thought leader. So that's one thing that we do. And then secondly, crisis communications. Both Eric and I have had a lot of experience with Fortune 100 companies. When we started this business, I said, oh, we're like 2 cannons in a canoe, because we got all this Fortune 100 and 500 experience, and we've been through the wars with our clients. We've seen companies file for bankruptcy. We've done that type of work. We have worked with large developers that have situations where tenants are murdered, and we've had issues where things have gotten polluted. So we've been through these heavy-duty issues, and we've got this tiny company, and we've got all this experience. So we came up with cannons in a canoe. So crisis is one of our big strengths. And then finally, community relations. If you're a developer and you start pounding steel rods into the earth and you don't tell the neighbors, well, the neighbors are not going to be too happy. So we get out there way ahead of time with a fact sheet. We talk to neighbors, and we get them prepared for what's going to come. And when you open the lines of communications, amazing thing happens. If you don't talk, it builds up this image of a large corporation that doesn't like people or is not going to be friendly. So we are shifting our business. We look at it as we're doing this business, but there's more to it. We're part of the community, and we want to have an impact on the community in a positive way. So one thing, I'm on the board of Junior Achievement, and Junior Achievement is on the verge of just exploding in Baltimore. It's out in Owings Mills, but there are publicly, and it's stated this, that it's looking for new space in Baltimore. And it's a tremendous organization. It has entrepreneurial programs that I've seen that kids are involved in, and they're manufacturing things. So it's teaching the entrepreneurial way. It teaches kids about finance and how to relate to the economy. And there are 46,000 students who will go through some of their programs in a year. So I'm on the board there. And then we're working with a minister in Sandtown, Winchester, a guy named Derek DeWitt. And he is amazing because he's got a group of about 13 churches that he's working with, and they pretty much have, they're the foundation in that community. He works with drug dealers. He tries he works on violence prevention, things like that. He's feeding people. The other day, I think during the holidays, he called, said, I need 15 turkeys or hams. And I'm out running off to Sam's Club, and by the time I got out there, he needed about 10 turkeys. So I brought them to his church, and I was amazed. There's this room full of chairs, and there's basically a shopping bag on each chair, and it's filled with produce and food for people to celebrate Christmas. And I was just struck by the fact that in our country, that this guy needed 10 turkeys. The need to feed people is, it's baffling to me when we have so much in this country. You see organizations that feed and clothe and heal people, and many of them are nonprofits. They're growing, they keep growing. They're going the wrong way. They should be shrinking. It's our problem. We need those organizations to shrink. Once they shrink, then we know we've taken care of the problem. So that's how one way we're shifting. We're looking not just at our business, but at society as a whole. The greatest hope for the world is that we have world peace, which there's so many issues that this globe faces. But world peace, because if you look at it, there are like 10 wars going on right now. And if by any other count, if you look at conflicts, smaller conflicts, you're up to like 134 at once. I'm not exactly sure how many we're involved in, but we're involved. And every day, and maybe it's the news, maybe it's the media, you can blame it on the media, but maybe that's the filter we see everything through. We don't see we do see some good stories, but war is ever present in Syria, in Afghanistan, in Ukraine. But when you localize that, we're in a war here in Baltimore too. And that's a drug war. And it's every day. And we're losing that there are smart people being killed. And some of them are perpetrators. And this is the path that either they have chosen or has been kind of inflicted on them. And to lose 300 people a year to gun violence, it's absurd in a city this small. So I don't know if SHIFT has an impact on that. I know the minister that we work with, and hopefully we'll bring him into SHIFT and let him talk about the challenges he faces. But he is definitely involved in that, and we hope to help him. We hope to help him in any way that minimizes that problem. One thing that I teach, my daughter works with us, and Erica does, and we had another employee. And one thing I teach them is, I don't want you to be, quote, PR people. I want you to be reporters. I want you to be, one, interested in what your client's up to, and I want you to know about your client, and I want you to be really curious. So when we have a client that's a bank, we sit down and we go through the balance sheet. We talk about assets and liabilities or deposits and return on equity and return on investment. We go through this stuff. When we have a client that files for bankruptcy, we go to Pacer and get the document, because it's important for us to know more than the reporter. If I have an employee who knows, who can read, who can put together a press release and know that a spike in non-performings is bad and could mean a negative story, well, then we're going to prepare our client better for that. So I want, and I also want them to know how to talk to reporters. You know, it's not that you pepper them with 1,000 emails, it's that you know when a good time to email them is, and you know what a good story is. So having the nose for news, I mean, that's important. When we sit down with clients and they start talking about what they're doing, my ear is, that's a good story, that's a good story, we could pitch that one. And it helps the reporter. So the more they think like reporters, the better.